All right, Grace, and I'll wait for you to tell me when it's 9 o'clock, because I'm not sure my clock is right. It is 9 o'clock? Oh, let's do this then. Hey, this is call to order of the OAA Board. Welcome to this meeting of the Oklahoma Aerospace and Aeronautics Commission, March 11th, 2026 meeting. The meeting notice was posted according to the requirements for the Open Meeting Act. Meeting will come to order, and if I could ask for us to do the roll call, I'd appreciate that.
First Congressional District Commissioner, Vice Chairman Seth Phillips. Second Congressional District Commissioner, Chairman Kevin Potter. Third Congressional District Commissioner, Bob Baker.
Here.
Fourth Congressional District Commissioner, Lindy Ritz.
Here.
Fifth Congressional District Commissioner, Blake Rainey.
Here.
At-large Commissioner, Jim Putnam.
Here.
At-large Commissioner, Jerry Hunter.
Here.
House-appointed Commissioner, Secretary Craig Campbell.
Here.
Senate-appointed Commissioner, Bailey J. Siegfried.
Here.
Looks like we have a quorum. We're missing our chair and our vice chair, so unfortunately, you're on your third string today, and if I bow out, I'm not sure who takes over. I guess we go back to past chair, so my buddy to the left here will take over. All right. You have before your draft meeting of January 21st, 2026. The commission has been sent out to you with the copy in your meeting packet. And right now I'm looking to see if there are any corrections, additions, deletions, or anything to the minutes. If there is nothing, and I see nothing, then I'd take a motion to approve the minutes.
I shall move. Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion from anybody? Any additions, changes, deletions? Seeing none, please call the roll.
Commissioner Baker.
Yes.
Commissioner Ritz.
Aye.
Commissioner Rainey.
Aye.
Commissioner Putnam.
Aye.
Commissioner Hunter.
Aye.
Commissioner Campbell.
Aye.
Commissioner Siegfried.
Aye.
All right, the first item up on our agenda is item 4. It's the financial report, and I believe, Chris, you're going to be giving that to us today? Welcome.
Starting out with the financial summary document, as of the end of February, the department had an ending cash balance of $38.1 million. Encumbrances totaled just over $32 million, leaves us with an unencumbered cash balance of just over $6 million. Estimated statutory revenue for the remainder of the fiscal year, which is June 30, is $5.3 million. Outstanding reimbursements owed to the agency total about $4.3 million, or excuse me, $3.4. The total amount of expenditures that could be incurred in this fiscal year is $9.5 million. This will leave us with an expected available cash balance after encumbrances and expected income of $5.4 million. And the total fiscal year-to-date expenditures was $26.2 million as of the end of February. That does compare to $14.8 million for the same time frame last year. So again, we are exponentially higher on our spending this year. My appreciation to Michelle and Andrea and Clarissa for continuing to get payments out the door as quick as they can. On the revenue, total statutory revenue collected for the month of January was $5.6 million, and February was $585,000. Total revenue collected through February of this fiscal year is $15.4 million compared to $11.3 million last year. I will clarify again, same thing as January. The majority of that is going to be reimbursements from sponsors for airport projects. If you look just at our traditional fees and taxes, we're at $4.6 million this year compared to $9.4 million last year. The biggest difference is aircraft excise tax. It's down, I believe, about 56%. For those of you who were on last year, we had a 4-month stretch there where we had over $1 million each month. So that is, we have not had that this year. So that's the primary difference. And then finally, on the 3-year average chart, you'll see that compared to the 3-year average for our statutory revenue, we are down about $3.1 million less than what that average is. Again, goes back to primarily being last year's excise tax collections. Happy to answer any questions.
Okay, are there any questions from the members of the commission? I see none. Thank you very much for that presentation. We'd move on to item number 5, legislative, congressional, and regulatory update. Director Artis, please present.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Start off this morning by, if you haven't been watching the news, certainly some politics changing in Oklahoma with Senator Mullen moving on to cabinet secretary position in the presidential cabinet. So I believe he takes that job March 31st. Obviously, that then creates a domino effect where the Governor has to appoint a temporary replacement to serve out the remainder of that U.S. senatorial term. That individual has to sign an oath that they won't seek the permanent office, that they'll just do it as a temporary role. But I know there's already folks lining up to put their hat in the ring for that office that weren't previously planning on doing so. So that adds another statewide office that is open, that is not an incumbent. So we have governor, lieutenant governor, attorney general, state superintendent of education, now a U.S. Senate seat that are all open and available. And of course, depending on who decides to put their hat in the ring for the Senate seat, as there's a couple congressional offices in Oklahoma that I think that are considering that may open up those seats in the Oklahoma area. So the next 3 months, or I guess 2 months up until, or 3 months up until the primaries in June, will certainly be interesting. And of course, the next 9 months as we truck towards having all those individuals take office next January that are elected will be certainly an interesting time. We will be busy educating all of those individuals on the importance of aerospace and defense. So certainly keep your eyes to the ground, and if you have any if you hear of anybody that wants to know about aerospace and defense, you know, anybody that might be not supportive of aerospace and defense, once they've reached elected office, we certainly want to educate them on the benefits to this industry in the state of Oklahoma. So it will be an interesting election cycle, and I certainly think we'll all be watching to see what happens.
I was holding my breath that you were about to make an announcement yourself. I'm sure glad you didn't.
That is the one thing you can probably guarantee with certainty that I won't be doing if I care to maintain my bride and a happy status.
Very good.
And myself, my own mental state. I don't know that I'd like to be in the election cycle. But anyway, the legislature is moving at epic pace, I would say, is what's been termed. They are rapidly moving bills through their process. Right now, we are in originating floor season. So ended committee work last week. This week is the first full week of floor work that is starting. This will run through March 26th, where all bills from the originating chamber have to be heard and passed off the floor. Of course, the one bill that we are watching, the engineer tax credits bill, that's kind of our one request bill. That's moved and I believe has been moved off the floor. And so a couple of the other bills are making their way through the process that we're watching, a couple that we've helped draft with language, a couple we're just keeping an eye on. And so certainly watching that, and I would be remiss if I didn't make the announcement that my executive assistant has taken over the role of legislative liaison, so her business card title is going to get a little longer for the time being. So Adrienne Stroud, our new legislative liaison at the Capitol. She is returning to the Capitol. I don't think she thought she was going to return this quickly to the Capitol, according to her Facebook post the other day. But she's been at the Capitol for many years with OMES prior to coming to our agency, and so we're certainly glad to have her representing us at the state capitol. On the congressional side, you'll hear I was in D.C. Just a couple weeks ago in my director's report, but the congressional regulatory side, things are going well. We're still waiting for the Part 108, the UAS rules for the larger aircraft to drop. In the meantime, the White House did announce the eVTOL Integration Pilot Program, or the EIPP as we like to call it. Those were announced yesterday, I think, or maybe day before. Oklahoma, our primary submittal was not selected, but we were a part of 3 proposals as partners that were selected. So certainly looking to wave the Oklahoma flag with a couple of those EIPP proposals that we're partnering on. So very excited about that. So that concludes my legislative, congressional, regulatory update. Certainly stand for any questions that the commission may have.
Any questions from commissioners? Nope, seeing none. Thank you, Grayson.
Thank you.
Next up on our agenda is item 6, airport construction and grant change orders. Michelle, I believe you're going to be doing that. Welcome.
Good morning, Mr. Secretary and Commissioners. Item A before you is going to be a change order.
Hey,
in-
Michelle, you know, we got some roosters running around in the back of the room there, Nick. You know, could you get control of the animals?
I thought it was just in my head.
No, it's not.
You know? Okay. Thanks, Nancy. Okay, item A before you is going to be a change order in which we use Director Artie's authority to move forward. So we're simply bringing this item before you for informational purposes. So this project is the 8-unit T hangar and box hangar at Okemah Municipal Airport. And they had a change order due to they want to change the color of the roof. And this is also to reconcile quantities. So that final cost ended up being $4,568.98 and is funded with state funds. This is one of the projects that was part of the enhancement of infrastructure projects from our FY25 state budget. So that's just to make you aware of that item. Item B, for the following 3 items, staff is actually seeking your approval. So item B is going to be at Clinton Sherman. This is for updates to the lighting and signage for runway 17R35L. The change order is necessary in order to utilize alternate cable routing solutions due to existing site conditions. The estimated additional cost is $101,319.50 and is funded with OSIDAS prep funds. Just to give you a little more background on that, when they were on site, it was determined that the existing cable routing and underground pathways were just not in good condition, which resulted in rerouting to avoid pavement removal. It was just the cheaper of the 2 options. With regards to the actual cost, the consultant CEI services are expected to underrun and actually absorb this cost, but because it's 2 separate contracts, we do need to make you aware of the increase on this one. The other one's actually going to decrease, obviously. But we still need your approval for that. Item C is going to also be at Clinton Sherman. That is going to be phase 3 of the pavement rehab. This is a final change order and will reconcile quantities for concrete pavement and markings. That additional cost is $33,043 and will be funded with OSIDAS prep funds. Finally, item D for the Jet A fuel system at William R. Pogue in Sand Springs. This amendment is necessary due to grading as well as OCC requiring the addition of some bollards for protection around the existing basin area. This just came about late in the project. The estimated additional cost will be $32,976.50, and that is split 50-50, so the state share would be $16,486. I will stand for any questions, but staff does recommend approval on items B through D.
All right, well, let's go with that. Is there a motion to approve?
I so move.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Any discussion or questions of Michelle, what she's presented? Seeing none, could we call the roll, please?
Commissioner Baker,
Aye.
Commissioner Ritz,
Aye.
Commissioner Rainey,
Aye.
Commissioner Putnam,
Aye.
Commissioner Hunter,
Aye.
Commissioner Campbell,
Aye.
Commissioner Siegfried.
Aye. Perfect. We're going to move on now to item number 7, the 5-year airport construction program. Nick, you're recognized, please.
Thank you, Commissioner, and good morning. This first item for me today, for item 7, is for the existing airport construction program. This is to add 3 projects that I had intended to add in the normal course of business through item 11. The problem is sometimes whenever you tell folks to get moving and get stuff in the ground, they listen to you and they exceed expectations. So it's a good problem to have. But most of these are through either prep projects or pro-growth appropriation projects that we were able to get going a little bit sooner than what was expected. And so what I'm seeking to do is add 3 projects to the existing ACP today. The first for our Ardmore Municipal Airport. This is phase 3 of the utilities projects that we have been doing out there. And this will be for the Grumman Street sanitary sewer. The second is at Clinton Sherman. That is the next phase of our pavement rehabilitation, phase 5 internally here at the department. As to what we've been doing out there, this will be for the secondary runway, the smaller runway, 17 left, 35 right. Crack seal, seal coat, or excuse me, that's wrong. We're on top of pavement. Joint seal, spa repair, and updating those markings out there. And then at OKC, Will Rogers International, one of the pro-growth appropriations projects for the construction of Taxi Lane Golf 2 that'll expand out to a commercial development area on the east side of the airport. Staff recommends approval into these projects into the current ACP, and I stand for any questions you may have.
Thank you very much. Is there a motion to adopt?
So moved.
Moved
Second.
and seconded. Are there any questions of Nick on these three items?
One question, you say
Yes, Jim.
the G2 taxiway at Will Rogers is going to the east side?
I believe that is correct, and I will have a visual in the next item here that shows exactly where that is, but I do believe it's just on the east side of that, their north-south runway there that is escaping me at the moment.
Do you know what it's going to?
Yes, so there are a couple of items through some additional appropriations through them that they will be partnering with some state funds, I believe, and please correct me if I'm wrong, Director, with some state appropriations to build out a maintenance facility or maintenance hangar over on that east side. So this not only leads to that hangar, but then opens up the additional development for private development on further along that taxiway Golf too.
Okay, thank you.
Are there any other questions? Any discussion? Seeing none, please call the roll.
Commissioner Baker,
Aye.
Commissioner Ritz,
Aye.
Commissioner Rainey,
Aye.
Commissioner Putnam,
Aye.
Commissioner Hunter,
Aye.
Commissioner Campbell,
Aye.
Commissioner Siegfried.
Aye.
That motion passes. Moving on to item 8, it's the Airport Construction Grant Program, also with Nick.
Thank you very much, Commissioner. And this next item should provide a little bit of clarification to Commissioner Putnam's question there. The first item here requesting the actual grant approval of that Will Rogers International project. The total project cost about $7.6 million, and we'll progress the slide just one more. I believe we have that visual that I was referencing there at Will Rogers. So that shows both the base bid and where that's going to. So both the green and the blue areas there are part of this project, expanding north from Taxiway Golf. And so that first area, that kind of first white outline, or white box outlined there just to the east of that green taxi lane, I think being that first hangar that's going to develop an apron to the north of that. And then again, everything expanding up to the north there so that they can continue that development out on that commercial development area. Total project cost again at $7.6 million, the department share of that at $3 million, the local share at $4.6. And again, that's through some pro-growth appropriations through the state legislature. And the second project we're seeking grant approval for is at Tahlequah Municipal Airport. This is an existing project in the airport construction program. This is again for that taxi lane on the east side to bring some of that west side development that penetrates Part 77 services on the west, give them a space to relocate to the east so that we can meet modern design standards. So this project just shy of, there's a little over $1.1 million of the department share of $1,070,904 and a little over $56,000 on the local share, again, for that taxi lane and relocating the AWAS that is both past its useful life and will now be encroaching on that development area as we expand to the north. Staff recommends approval for these two projects. I stand for any questions.
Thank you very much. Is there a motion to adopt?
I so move.
Perfect. I got a
Second.
and a second. I have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Any questions? Seeing none, please call the roll.
Commissioner Baker,
Aye.
Commissioner Ritz,
Aye.
Commissioner Rainey,
Aye.
Commissioner Putnam,
Aye.
Commissioner Hunter,
Aye.
Commissioner Campbell,
Aye.
Commissioner Siegfried.
Aye.
All right, we're moving on to the next item, which is item number 9, Progressing Rural Economic Prosperity Prep Fund, and that is continuing with Nick, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay,
Thank you,
sir,
Commissioner.
continue.
Much like the previous item, the only reason that these are split out is because of the different pots of funding. So this is again for grant approval at that Ardmore Municipal Project for the Grumman Street utilities, that sanitary sewer that I alluded to. If we progress that slide one more, we'll have that visual of where that's going and some of that cargo development that we've been working on that southeast portion of the airfield. And so this is the phase 3 of those utilities for $1,857,331, and this is with their prep funding that was directed toward Ardmore Municipal Airport. Staff recommends approval. I stand for any questions.
Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
So moved. Is there a second?
Second.
I have a second. Is there any discussion? Anybody questions? Seeing none, please call the roll.
Commissioner Baker,
Aye.
Commissioner Ritz,
Aye.
Commissioner Rainey,
Aye.
Commissioner Putnam,
Aye.
Commissioner Hunter,
Aye.
Commissioner Campbell,
Aye.
Commissioner Siegfried.
Aye.
And that motion passes. Continuing on with Nick's agenda, we will go to item 10, the Clinton Sherman contract. Continue, please.
Thank you, Commissioner. With this project, again, much like the past two, this is a grant approval. It's just a different pot of funding since it would be with ODAA revolving funds. This is a project, again, to rehabilitate runway 17 left, 35 right, partnering with our FAA entitlements that Clinton Sherman has successfully gotten to. It's not something that they were able to do until this past 4 years. So now that they are classified airport in the FAA National Plan of Integrated Airport Systems, NIPIAS, a lot of people talk about the non-primary entitlement funding, the AIG funding that a lot of our airports receive that are in the FAA system. Thankfully, we have been able to get that airport to a classified status, so partnering with the $1,043,000 of FAA funding available to that, with some OSIDA funds at just a little over $2.9 million to get that pavement rehabilitation done on that secondary runway that sits on the parallel. That includes the joint sill, a spall repair, localized panel replacements, and full marking reconstruction. They'll blast it off and then put a new coat back on. Staff recommends approval. I stand for any questions.
Thank you. Is there a motion to approve?
I so move.
All right, it's been moved. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, there's been a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, please call the roll.
Commissioner Baker,
Aye.
Commissioner Ritz,
Aye.
Commissioner Rainey,
Aye.
Commissioner Putnam,
Aye.
Commissioner Hunter,
Aye.
Commissioner Campbell,
Aye.
Commissioner Siegfried.
Aye.
Motion passes. Item 11 is the FY 27 to 31 5-year airport construction program. Nick, I believe you have some slides for this?
I do believe that is correct.
Okay, rock and roll.
Thank you, Commissioner. And as you alluded to, this is quite deceiving. It's one line item in the agenda, but it pairs with 124 slides. So I think last year my record was 65. That tells you where we're at and where we're going. I say all that to say I will have some precursors here. We have a lot more. What typically happens in March, as I recommend, are additions to the ACP, and then we move into public comment, and then we come back in May for full formal approval. And so, again, what we're asking for right now is to go into public comment. I will go into detail on some of the more unique and interesting projects here, Atoka being the one of them. I know that all of us know we've been working on an airport relocation, so I'll spend a little bit more time on that. But as I go through, I will go pretty quickly, because again, the idea being that we can move into a public comment phase here. But I say all that to say, please stop me if we need to have a conversation at this point in time on any of these projects, and I'd be happy to give whatever information that I can get for you today. And so we'll start off the party here with Ada Regional Airport, and these include all additions as well as any modifications to the ACP. And so what you had in your packet is a new ACP page for all the new additions. I think there was about 70, maybe 72 of those. And then again, anything above and beyond that in the 124 slides are individual slides for a grant that we anticipate. This is all put in here as best case scenario, so especially for things like Atoka where there's a lot of moving parts. I am sure those calendar years and those fiscal years will shift a little bit here and there. But again, the intention here being that I put things in the ACP as they're given to me as part of the capital improvement plans that we receive from our airports and review in the fall. And those are always best case scenario, especially for something that's as unique as an Atoka. So at Ada Regional Airport, we are seeking to add a reconstruction of their PAPIs, reels, odals, and wing cone and signage, so a pretty decent electrical project here. Looking to partner that with some FAA state apportionment funds for just a little over $1 million. Also at Ada, we're just looking to update the numbers and on their construction of their T-hangar buildings that's in the existing ACP as it stands today. In addition, for Altus Courts Mountain for an 8-unit T-hangar, this is a remove and replace of some old T-hangar buildings that are dilapidated and really have met the far end of their useful life. Also looking to add a land acquisition into the ACP as well to protect their RPZ to the south. And that's that south area there from obstructions and those types of things. As we know, land control is something that we've been trying to make sure that all of our airports understand and are going to do their best to make sure that they're protecting the surfaces that affect their airport. At Ardmore Downtown, just seeking to slide back their construction of the perimeter fencing that's in the existing ACP as it stands today. And then we get to our friends at Atoka. What we have done up to this point is go through a process where we recognize there were a lot of constraints at their existing airport. We went through a justification process with FAA to understand, does this meet the needs for for that area in the system? As we know, I look at the airport system in the state of Oklahoma for our 107 airports that are in our system. The FAA looks at it through the NIPIAS, that National Plan of Integrated Airport Systems, at their level. And their prioritization is based off of airports all throughout the system, and of course, what that looks like regionally. And so what we were able to determine through that justification project is, yes, they are constrained. Yes, they do need a larger runway, even to meet the operations that they have today, let alone the things that they want to bring in the industry they've been trying to bring into this point that they simply cannot. And so throughout that process, that has been the better part of 3 or 4 years at this point, it all starts to run together at some point. But we have gone through the process of that initial justification, the site selection study, provided that to FAA. We received that concurrence that this project is justified and reasonable, and part of their priorities in the national system, so that they could put traditional state apportionment and discretionary funding toward this process. We are currently going through the environmental assessment right now on the new land that we anticipate will be acquired once it clears that EA. Obviously, we don't want to buy land if it's not going to clear an environmental assessment. But all of those areas have been identified. Some of those negotiations have taken place. The EA has been put into the hands of the FAA. We've heard back there's just no red flags. We're finalizing the checklist of that to clear the final environmental assessment. And then from that point, we plan to go toward land acquisition would be the next thing, in addition to a lot of the design work that has been ready and waiting, basically waiting for the final pin to drop so that we can acquire the land and use, for the design portions of those, there's already some state appropriation funding that's been allocated to get those things off the ground and or in the ground, depending on the way that you want to look at it. And so I say a lot that say that's kind of why, to this point, we've had a couple of things like the initial environmental assessment come through the airport construction program and that kind of thing. But now that we have FAA concurrence, I wanted to start to paint that picture of what the path forward looks like. And that's going to be based off of the availability of not only the traditional FAA funding and how that competes through the national prioritization ranking system, but also the state funding through the appropriations that have already been given, as well as future congressionally designated spending that we expect from both the state and the federal legislature. So a lot of moving parts, a very interesting project, something I really don't think, while we've had some airport relocations in the past, this is really the first animal of its kind in the state of Oklahoma. Again, correct me if I'm wrong, Director, because you are quite the history buff when it comes to that stuff, but I don't want to stand up here and lie to our commissioners. So all that being said, this is our best understanding, again, recognizing the next piece is EA and then land acquisition, but then we started programming the design-only grants that we expect to come that then will turn into future construction grants. So the first with this, site preparation and utilities, again, plan to be funding, this is the design aspect of that, plan to be funded with the state appropriations. Same with the construction of the runway and the taxiway. The same with the apron. Again, these first ones at the front end here are just for the design onlys, followed by the land acquisition. Again, I probably should have put that first, but this is the way that they were presented to me in the CIP whenever they were given, and I just didn't go back and sort because I got lost in 124 slides, so I do apologize. Land acquisition, partnering with some state apportionment funding on that as well from the FAA, again, because they recognize that this is a priority as well, not only for the state system, but for the federal system. And then, yes, please.
Okay, I just looked up the Atoka Airport's got a 3,000-foot runway now. This new one will be,
At minimum 4,000, the goal is 5,000.
okay.
Eventually, long-term, if everything goes gangbusters as they expect it from local conversations, they are bringing industry in, probably closer to 6. So we are designing to where they could get up to 6,000 in terms of the new land that they are acquiring.
You further west of the town?
It is just it's to the north and west of where the current location is, yes.
Thank you.
How many acres is this that we're planning?
This is kind of the minimum required. This is looking at 850 acres.
850.
Mhm. And there is, the caveat here is the local portion of this will change, I'm sure, but we didn't want to put that additional local amount in there because that will be based off of what they are able to get off of the existing airport location as they upload that. So they are in discussions for potential buyers of that. The minimum that we expect them to get from an appraiser, aviation-specific appraiser that was kind of floored me, that came in at $1 million. I don't know how any airport could not be, even with their constraints, how that wouldn't be $1 million. So they are actually working on a commercial real estate appraisal to partner with the aviation-specific one that they went through to get through during the FAA process. So they, if nothing else, if they get the $1 million minimum on the local level paired with this funding that you see here, that 4.2 is what we expect, because the initial cost per acre that they are in discussions with right now are somewhere in that, it's somewhere in that $5,000 to $6,000 an acre cost price.
Thank you.
Absolutely. And then we move on again toward some of the actual best case scenarios on the construction of the runway and taxiway. Obviously, you can see that's the $11 million lift there. That is for that initial 4,000 foot runway. And then again, depending on some of what changes in the locality and how some of those conversations go, we anticipate that if things fall where they may, then there would be some private investment or other types of things that would drive it longer. But this is all based off of what has been justified in the eyes of the FAA, and that's what I'm always looking to plan for, unless there is a different pot of funding that is already associated with that, like a CDS earmark or whatever the case may be going forward. So that's how I try to think through this as I'm planning and programming, excuse me. And my voice has been trying to go out all week, so the universe has a sense of humor sometimes whenever I got to do 4 presentations in a week. Let's bring those allergies in this season. So same thing with the construction of the apron will come on the heels. Oh, I've got some here too, but thank you. Some will come on the heels of that, the construction of the apron, as well as the access road to get to it. Obviously, it's going to take some time to do the work on the runways and taxiway connectors, and so that'll come in on the heels of that, planning and programming for when these would fall into place in the right times. And then following that up with the nav aids, the lights, mainly the PAPIs, the beacon, the reel, and the AWAS in that 2028 timeframe, best case scenario. Again, that design, the reason that we're seeing so many slides specifically for design is traditionally we have wrapped those into a construction cost, and there we would have one grant that then covered both the design and the construction. What we're seeing a lot more with, especially with projects like this, is we'll have a design-only grant, and then a future year, a construction-only grant. And so I wanted to make sure that I was showing those costs split out as accurately as possible, and especially in the timeframes that we expect. Because again, I do anticipate that everything I've just talked about will shift to some degree as we go forward. And then as we get some of that other infrastructure in the ground, look to go vertical with things like their construction of their terminal building, so around 2029 timeframe, design only on that, as well as their fuel farm. And then in the following year, look to construct both the terminal building and the fuel farm. So you see, again, design-only costs followed by those construction costs as they are estimated today. And then at the tail end of that, the design and construction of executive hangar, FBO-style hangar out there as well. But we do anticipate, obviously, as they get going, there will be areas for private development as well through land leases and those types of things to make sure that we're getting traffic out there just as soon as we're able. And so I believe that brings us to the end of ATOCA's. I'm going to stop and ask if there are any questions on that, because that is the biggest bear of a project I have worked on in the 5 years that I've been here, and it has been an absolute delight, and there is no sarcasm in that whatsoever. It has been a blast, and I'm excited to see where we go from here.
I'll just comment that I appreciate you breaking it out the way you did, because it defines it by fiscal year, so anybody looking at it knows that it's not just all at once. 30 million is a lot of money, but it's also really good to see how we're concentrating on making sure the airport meets all the needs of the community, as well as the aviation community that goes in and out of that airport. So you did a good job. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Any other comments for Nick? Nope. Continue, please.
Absolutely, and I will say I'll start to go through some of these a little faster because they're more traditional, what we're typically expect throughout this process. But again, please stop me as I go. I just didn't want to get dialed into the details of these numbers because, one, we know they're going to change, and two, we know that we're going into a public comment period here. But I do want to address any questions that we have here today. I just didn't want you guys to think I was trying to skate through and get off scot-free here. So at Bartlesville Municipal, we'll have a couple of projects that we're looking to add to the ACP. They do want to construct some additional hangars through our hangar program, the first set being 3 75 by 75s and the 26-27 time frame for about $2.6 million. We will be looking at rehabilitating their runway and runway lights in the 2028 time frame through the traditional route with FAA funding at $1.5 million. And again, they wanted to add some additional hangars on the back end of our ACP in the 2031 time frame, And again, recognizing that we do these, all these are commensurate to whether or not we have that hangar funding at that point in time. We make no allusions to our airports that we can guarantee funding 5 years out. And so again, we're just trying to plan for best case scenario, and Chris would kick me if I was trying to plan too much and get behind the 8 ball on the funding that we have coming in. So again, I want to make that point as well. But anytime that we have airports that are ready to partner, either their FRA or their local funds, we do want to plan and program for those projects as best we can. At Beaver Municipal Airport, they do, if everything can fall into place, want to go after a box hangar in the 2031 timeframe, again, recognizing that's pretty far out, and that is a pretty big local lift for a town the size of Beaver. So we will work with them to try to get them over that hump, but recognizing that that one might be a big lift compared to what some of these others might be with some of the bigger towns that we work with. But regardless of your size, I'm here to work with them, and I want to see them get them through as best we can if that is a project that makes sense and that they can get over that hump at the local level as well. At Boise City, they are looking to construct a terminal building. We're just looking to move this up 1 year because they did get some additional funding that they can put toward this as well through the CDS process. So we're looking now at a $2.8 million project. For their perimeter fence, we're looking to add that as well. At Boise City in the 2027 timeframe, they have a lot of intrusions there with some nice local wildlife, and even there at the terminal area, they've needed to create something with a little bit more separation, especially as they look to grow out there in that area. At Buffalo Municipal, we're looking to add a runway rehabilitation project in the 2030 timeframe for $1.1 million, partnering with some FAA funding. And then at Carlton Landing, we're just looking to update some of the projects that are in the existing ACP with some of the more known funding levels that we have, partnering with some FAA funding for the construction of the taxi lane and the apron, as well as the construction of the terminal building as well. The last one there being the sliding of the rehabilitation of the runway and safety area drainage improvements to 2030. Again, partnering with some FAA funding there based off the conversations that we had with our ADO February 10th of this year. Chandler Regional Airport, just looking to update some of the numbers on their runway rehabilitation. As we know, as we've gone through the planning process over 5 years, some of these numbers have needed to be updated a little bit, but thankfully it's not getting too out of whack, and it still coincides with the FAA program that we have available for this project going forward in that 27 timeframe. Also at Chandler, looking to extend and widen their runway and the taxiway, again, utilizing some CDS funding that they were able to receive. Total project cost on just under $8 million, partnering at our normal splits with that coming through the CDS discretionary pot of funds from the FAA. Also at Chandler, looking to slide the terminal building project from 27 to 28 and update those numbers based off the CDS funding that they have received. Chickasha Municipal looking to update the project numbers for their construct 120 by 120 box hangar. So just shy of a $1.6 million project at this point, based off of the preliminary numbers that we've seen from their consultant and their FAA funding available to partner with that. Also at Chickasha Municipal, they want to do a hangar development plan. One thing is they can go forward with their new hangar development as well as their terminal building. They have some old things that maybe need to either go away or maybe how do they best maximize the space that they have. So they're looking to do a hangar development plan and terminal area study to find the right path forward as they continue to build out there at Chickasha Municipal. They also would like to go after a Jet A fuel truck as well in 2027 timeframe through our fuel project or fuel program as well. That's about a $350,000 request on that one. At Claremore Regional, we're just updating the numbers on the runway rehabilitation. Crack sealing, seal coat used to be $300,000 no matter where you did it. So as we've gone, I've had to reluctantly concede to some of the project costs that we've been seeing. So we just upped that to about $400,000. That should give us plenty in terms of planning and programming to make sure that we are able to cover the needs that they have. And I'm sure that there will be some localized patching and utility cuts that they have to make for some of the bigger cracks as well. CE Page, we're just looking to slide this back by 1 year as they are working on the design of their hangars for 4 50 by 50 hangars, still at a $2 million cost. And then we're looking to add a runway rehabilitation for 17 right, 35 left in that 2031 timeframe. Again, utilizing and partnering with some FAA funding on that. For the rehabilitation of the runway at Cleveland Municipal, we're just looking to slide that from 25 to 26. And then we get to Clinton Sherman, which is where we will seek to add several projects and kind of add in our overall plan going forward from Clinton Sherman. Up to this point, before we had the merger, a lot of the projects that we were doing all filtered through the OSIDA prep fund specifically. So we didn't, because those had a specific pot of funds that were directed specifically to OSIDA, a lot of those things were handled just through the contractual basis. I wanted to make sure that we were showing the path going forward regardless of those pots of funds, so that we could see all those projects in our ACP, just like we do any of our other projects, again, as we want to kind of formalize and normalize what we do going forward, acknowledging that we will be asking for funding for different things, whether it be at the state or the federal level, for pretty much each year as we go forward, obviously given things like the wastewater need that we have out there. We've got, I think, between $5 and $6 million that's underway right now at about a 60 to 70% completion out there today, but that's maybe a tenth of what the need is. I think the last number I saw was $63, $65 million worth of need on just wastewater improvements out there for the industrial park, not only to meet the demand that is there today, but obviously to serve the demand that we expect for tomorrow. But I mean, even with existing tenants, we've had some interesting things that we've had to overcome over the course of the projects that's going out there right now. And so we just want to position ourselves the best we can to serve not only the need today, but what we're going after tomorrow as a state. So the first here is adding phases 6 and 7 of the pavement rehabilitation out there on the airside needs. That should pretty well complete out what our overall plan has been from phase 1 to phase 7. Should pretty much clear everything but the middle part of the apron that we're looking to find a path forward on, because that's the most water damaged. So this pretty well handles everything aside from that middle portion of the apron. So 6 will do the north general aviation area, the far northeast side, that apron area there, and then phase 7 would be all of the apron pavements along the entire airfield. And so we broke out, we've already handled all the runway pavements in terms of the concrete that they actually land on, but all of the asphalt shoulders need pretty extensive rehab to keep from getting to a place where we're gonna start flooding out and those types of things. So we will do that. We'll seek to do all of the runways and taxiway shoulders that have that asphalt pavement, address the localized needs, then do a seal coat, seal it up, and try to keep that going as long as we possibly can before we have to get to a full reconstruction. But as you can imagine, there's a lot of asphalt out there whenever you're talking about both sides of those taxiways. So total cost on that anticipated at this point, about a $7.5 million project, but obviously the way that we'll time this is try to make sure that there's the minimal impact, especially as it relates to the runway, secondary runway project that we're looking to get underway here within the next month or two. Also adding to the ACP here, the Donna Aerospace hangar, the design and construction of that we anticipate. We're working on that right now through a design contract, but as we get closer to what that final looks like, we just wanted to put that project in here so we kind of see the footprint as it exists today, because that includes the hangar, the office space, a loading pad, the fueling pad, and so that's kind of what you see here on this diagram today is the minimum of what they need for their operations so that we can prep for them coming in 2027. And then you'll see a slew of wastewater improvements. Again, every year we'll be asking either the state or federal government to help with those, and we'll do that in $5 million chunks, just so that we felt like this project that we're dealing with right now gave us a pretty good idea of what that $5 million can get to us and how long it takes to get that kind of a project done. But we are working with a consultant to help us really line this out, express the need, and go through the process as efficiently and effectively as we possibly can so that we can maximize the dollar, make sure we can get that in the ground rather than chasing things along the way as we're trying to piecemeal this together to some degree. So the first tier that you see in 27 would be a CDS request at $5 million. Moving into the construct terminal building, again, this would be dependent on what kind of funding that we're able to get for the construction of the terminal building, whether it be through CDS or state appropriation. At the 27 timeframe, best case scenario is kind of how we have that programmed, and we expect that to be an $8 million project. The construction of the general aviation hangars just north of that terminal area, and then kind of basically what we're looking to do is find a way to remove one of the existing hangars, expand that taxiway out to the east, or a new taxi lane out to the east, and maximize the development area that we have for aeronautical purposes so that we don't start boxing ourselves in as we start to expand. And so this is kind of kicking off that North General Aviation area, and also where we hope to move some of our other tenants that are closer on, further to the south where some of our big iron is planned to be, and kind of deconflict some of that traffic as well. And then, of course, try to establish some more based aircraft out there so that we could solidify and have a need and a service base for providing not only the Jet A that we do today, but also the Hunter low lead, because that is a need. It's just not enough of a need right now for the FBO to invest in that at the moment. And so,
May I ask a question?
please.
Yes.
I was just gonna ask you a little bit more on that. So we have Jet A on site or in the works and 100 low lead for later?
So we have Jet A on site right now,
Yeah.
and then 100 low lead, we do intend to do a self-serve at some point, just so that we have that available to the folks.
Up
No-
closer to that area?
Yes.
Or- Yeah,
Yes.
okay. Thank you.
Absolutely. And then we've talked a little bit about the need for our free location. Obviously, we have a temporary solution for the fire trucks that the Air Force has received about a year plus early. And so this will be for the full our free location. Obviously, a lot of the safety and standards things that existed in this building that you see here don't meet modern safety requirements, and we want to make sure that we are taking care of the firefighters that are staying on site most days of the week in order to take care of our airport. And one of the things that came with that, not only with the structural and just the age of the facility, but also the exhaust systems for the trucks being right next to where their boardrooms, where they're board and those types of things overnight. We want to make sure that what we're giving them is safe and functional for them. And so we've been talking with them about new location, what the minimum needs are in order to meet the demands of what we have on site. Obviously, their first priority is the military, but there are other folks that they exist there to help, and we want to make sure that we're doing our due diligence going forward, especially as we anticipate that we will expand those services as the spaceport continues to grow.
So this is not the temporary facility we're going to put in take care of the trucks when they arrive early?
That is correct, sir. This is for a full long-term solution that meets the needs today and services tomorrow. And then you'll see just another slew each additional fiscal year or calendar year, again, as I put it, because trying to match federal fiscal year and our fiscal year just becomes a nightmare whenever I try to build slides. So 2028, we anticipate again asking for additional funds on the wastewater improvements, and we'll alternate that, as you can kind of see as we cycle these slides, between a federal ask and a state ask for these projects. Again, $5 million apiece, so we were just looking to put that in there through the end of our ACP to reflect that. Again, the projects only go forward if we can find and secure that funding. Any questions on Clinton Sherman before I move on to the rest of them?
Any questions? Nope, seeing none.
Thank you. David J. Perry looking to add a box hangar project. They're looking to do 3 box hangars out there, partnering with some of their federal funds to about $1.1 million we're seeking to add. Legislative directed project that we're seeking to add is the Air Traffic Control Tower Environmental Assessment. So this is state appropriations going to conduct that EA for a new control tower there at Durant. And then following that up with the control tower design once they finish that environmental assessment. Again, these are through state appropriated dollars. And following on with that, it would be a mix of federal and state funding. Again, all of these are best case scenarios. This is another one of those projects where we kind of don't know where it's going to land until the dominoes fall from the first EA and what their cost benefit looks like. Once they get to that point, they've seen tremendous growth, and we've had all the stakeholders are on board. It's just a matter of when this will actually take place, and again, dependent on the funding that is available from both the state and the local side. But I think this has been one of the few times that anytime I hear the need for a tower being discussed in general, and maybe rooms that we're not entirely involved in, like Control Tower, the Contract Tower Association, those types of things, this is the one time that I haven't just heard everybody say, oh no, that's never gonna happen. And so the fact that we are where we're at shows how far we've come from where we were in the past, the traffic that they've had to this day. And I mean, I think the big driver of that is, as you can imagine, with so many flight schools, as well as the casino there, the traffic mix has been a huge issue out there, and something that we've heard about for a great number of years at this point. So again, working with state and federal funding to try to see that through as responsibly as possible, depending on how it goes through the process and where the FAA falls at the end of that as well. And then they are looking to construct a box hangar. Basically, we're just sliding this back out. This one is, unfortunately, what we had previously signed on and tried to help with was a medevac hangar. They had actually gone through and designed that at the local level. They actually decided that it was best for the community to relocate that operation to the hospital. And so they no longer are pursuing that hangar there on that taxi lane for them. And now what they're trying to decide is what size of hangar, and do they want it right there next to the terminal, or will they put it there on that taxi lane to expand out that area? We're honest, personally, I'm trying to get them to build on that taxi lane, build out that area, and spur more private development. But we had some great conversations with their new airport manager just yesterday at the Oklahoma Airport Operators Conference. And so the city will be working on that to try to find the path forward. But the primary thing we're trying to do there is maximize their FAA funding that they have to put toward that. At El Reno Regional, we're just looking to slide their project for the taxi lanes back as they're continuing to finalize their construction that's underway with their terminal and other hangar developments out there. So just looking to slide that back and updating the numbers to what our most recent estimates are. And the same thing for their lighting and signage, just sliding that back and updating the numbers to the most recent estimate. Elk City Regional, just looking to slide their Jet A fuel system back from slide that from 28 to 26. So it looks like now they've had some of the developments that has gotten completed out there, like their terminal building. They are ready to move forward with that sooner than what we had originally programmed, and we are seeking to help them with that. This one's a little bit different. Obviously, we have our max, but they do have a unique system out there. They'll have some piping that they have to do. And so that's why you see a lot higher costs, and that's just because of the way that they are situated and the pipes that they will have to pump that fuel through to where they want to get their dispensers and those types of things, just because of how they're situated. But they'll be bringing their FAA and their local funds to cover that additional amount. At Enid Woodring, we are just looking to slide back the hangar development utilities. They are still working on those. It's just bumped back a year or so, going from 25 to 26. And then adding a reconstruct taxiway Bravo and lighting project in that 2028 timeframe. Again, partnering with some FAA funds on that. Frederick Regional looking to add 2 different projects, the first being a fuel project in 26, the second being their hangar project in 2028. At Guthrie Edmond Regional, we are sliding the terminal building and apron back just by 1 year, updating with the CDS funding that they have received for that to that $7 million amount that you see there. Then we're also looking to slide their taxi lane project back again so that they can focus on getting the terminal done and then figuring out the right path forward for those additional taxi lanes that they plan to utilize to spur additional economic development in the future. Guyman Airport, we're looking to add in a fuel farm project at $1.2 million out there. Again, partnering with their federal funds as well. And then also looking to slide their runway taxiway lighting and fillets and beacon projects. So both addressing some of the lighting, but then some of the standards items with the fillets and replacing their beacon. We're just sliding that back by a year. At Halliburton Field, we are just looking to slide up their rehabilitation and strengthening of the runway project. That's a CDS project. So once that funding was secured and we have a path forward, now we wanted to slide that up a few years now that we know that we'll be able to get that in the ground sooner rather than later and correspond with the expiring nature of and timeframes of the congressionally designated spending funding. At the runway rehab project at Hefner Easley, we're just looking to, that's there in Wagner, that's just to update those numbers. We had some horrible subgrade issues on their taxiway project, and the preliminary engineering report let us know that that is not going to be a $1.5, $1.6 million project, and is going to be closer to $3 to $3.3 million. And so I wanted to make that reflection, but again, FAA is on board with that. Thanks, and we were able to confirm that at our February 10th meeting that we had to go over CIPs. At Hobart Regional Airport, they are seeking to utilize their AIG funds on 4 50 by 50 box hangars. This one is a little late to the game just because they went through a city manager changeover, but their consultant was able to have a really good conversation with them and make sure that they were potentially on board with that, and looking to go and design that short term so that we can approve that in the next FAA grant funding cycle. At Holdenville, we're looking to add a project for their fuel system in the 28 timeframe. And then Hollis, we are looking to just slide back by 1 year the rehabilitation of their runway, which is the crack seal and seal coat. Jones Memorial Airport there in Bristow, looking to add the construction of 4 50-by-50 box hangars in the 2026 timeframe, about a $1.2 million project partnering with some FAA funding, and also a land acquisition out there on that east side, just looking to slide that back by a year. Also adding at Jones Memorial the rehabilitation of their runway, taxiway, beacon, and Pappies. Since we got all that rebuilt, it's now time for, in the process, to do a crack seal, seal coat, and then take care of a few of their electrical items as well. At Medill, we are now seeking the construction of their new runway. This has gotten off high center. This has been in the airport construction program for a few years. We have gotten over the hurdle of justification with FAA, and so they will be working toward this in earnest rather than just in theory. And so we are just looking to slide that back from 28 to 29 to coincide with the funding that FAA anticipates to be available for that. And we're also looking to install a 100 low lead fuel system in the 26-27 timeframe for them as well.
So Nick, back prior slide, that
Yes.
means they'll have parallel runways? Or
So,
are they decommissioning one?
so it just, it's kind of good happenstance that it came right after Bristow Jones Memorial. Just like in Bristow, this will be the construction of a new runway to the east, and the existing runway will turn into their parallel taxiway there. on the
Taxiway,
west.
okay,
Yes.
thanks.
No, thank you for asking. Moving on to McAllister Regional, we are just looking to add a project to install their fuel farm for both Hunter Loletta and Jet A. About just shy of a $2 million project cost there. And then also looking to construct 5 box hangars in the 2028 timeframe for about a $1.5 million project. And the taxi lane over there associated with that development area. Obviously, this is not for the areas that are solely used for those hangars, but the taxiway that then could be spurred on for future development as well. And the last but not least, at McAllister, they are seeking to improve their airport drainage through an FAA project that we'll partner with through state apportionment funding in the 2031 timeframe. At Miami, we're just looking to update the numbers on their realignment of the south portion of the parallel taxiway. It's about a $4.6 million FAA project. And looking to add the rehabilitation of their runway with a crack seal and seal coat in that 2028 timeframe. 2030 at Miami, looking to add in a rehabilitation of the apron for about a $2 million project that will partner with some FAA funding, either state apportionment or discretionary, depending on how the year falls that year. Mid-America Industrial, we are looking to install a fuel system for $700,000 in the 26 timeframe. So 26 design, probably construct sometime late 26, early 27 if all things go well. And then constructing a box hangar, again, that 2027 timeframe for a total of $2.1 million as well. That'll complement their brand new terminal building, kind of an FBO style hangar, transient hangar, so that they can get some of the revenue back with some of the traffic that they've been drumming up out there. And then with their runway extension and strengthening, that was previously programmed for 28, just seeking to slide that to 2031. And again, that's all commensurate with what FAA funding is available, because that will be driven by the National Prioritization Ranking System, or if they were to get some CDS funding, obviously that might slide up. At Muskogee Regional, we are looking to add in the rehabilitation of their taxiways Charlie and Delta for $900,000, partnering some additional FAA or department funds with the $450 of entitlement that they have from the FAA, and the rehabilitation of their runway, adding that in 2031 through a state apportionment project as well. At OKC Will Rogers International Airport, we're seeking to add in the construction of a Metro Tech hangar for $7.5 million. This is one of those projects that have been kind of in the background for a while that we've been trying to get over the hump on. But again, this is so that the donated aircraft that have been offered to Metro Tech have a place to live, because they have not been able to accept those because they don't have a hangar that they can store that in. But this gives students a place to go get their hands dirty and actually get hands-on experience, actually do taxi run-ups and those types of things of this aircraft. And this is primarily funded through Oklahoma state appropriation from the 2025 timeframe. I don't know that that's the entirety of it, and obviously the the numbers for this one have fluctuated a bit. I just wanted to put down the most recent ones that I've seen, and obviously as we see what those shake out of and I get additional updated estimated costs or bid costs, those will be updated to reflect those as we go forward.
What is that, an MD-80?
That was the last that I had heard about. I don't know, has that changed at all, Director?
Super 90?
Test. There we go. Yes, Commissioner, so the Career Tech, State Career Tech was donated MD-80 from American Airlines as they were decommissioning all those, whatever that was, post-COVID. And so it is located physically at Metro Tech right now, sitting out on the ramp. But as a part of the overall effort, what we're trying to do is create a essentially laboratory environment that this thing can go in. They'll be able to put it up on jacks, actuate the gear, take apart different pieces of the airplane and put them back together. And so it'll be available for all Career Tech programs, not just Metro Tech. And that's the distinction here. This is a Career Tech aircraft, a Career Tech hangar. Yes, it will be on the Metro Tech campus there at Will Rogers. But at the end of the day, we're trying to make that MD-80 that was donated to Career Tech a hands-on laboratory for the A&P programs and the maintenance programs around the state.
Excellent. Supporting Career Tech, very important.
Thanks for clarifying those details. At Perry Municipal Airport, we're seeking to add in a box hangar project, partnering with some FAA funding in the 27 timeframe, as well as sliding their rehabilitation of their runway from 29 to 30 based off of that February 10th FAA conversation. Ponca City, we're just simply looking to slide that back 1 year to the 26 timeframe and add in the CDS funding that was provided for this terminal building, about a $12.8 million prospect with the $1 million of the department's funds added in that. Following that along, we're just sliding back the apron portion of that project that was previously programmed just to coincide with when we expect that construction to be ready to go forward. Prague Municipal Airport, looking to do a crack seal coat of their runway, just sliding that back by a year. Constructing up to 3 50 by 50 box hangars at Purcell Municipal Airport is a project we're seeking to add. You can see the ones that we built just to the south of there that they've had some really good success with to this point. The problem is that they hover right around that 8, 9, 10 based aircraft number. So if any of those hangars are in transition or somebody's waiting on the delivery of an aircraft, which was the most recent issue here, is right around the time of that FAA snapshot. If you don't have 10 based aircraft in the system, you will lose your non-primary entitlement funding. So they've been looking to use a lot of their FAA funding, partnering with our hangar program funds so that they can, one, gain additional revenues. They do charge a reasonable rent out there, not some of the low rents that you might see throughout the state, but they do a great job there. But this is primarily to make sure that they have that buffer zone going forward, and the hope is that they are able to take these revenues, reinvest that in their airport, and from this point forward, unless they have a business entity that they want to bring in, this would be the last of their storage-specific hangars that we'd be seeking out there. But we don't want them to lose their non-primary entitlement funding or access to that state apportionment discretionary funding that they could also compete for only if they are classified. At Robert S. Kerr Airport in Poto, we are just sliding their extension back. We were able to do the runway rehabilitation, still waiting through the justification process with FAA. And so while we work through that, we just wanted to slide that back to reflect that more appropriately to what we think that may come out best case scenario. And with the extension of their parallel taxiway to the north, this is something that's needed regardless, and so we wanted to make sure that we showed that as they did in their CIP, reflecting an FAA project in the 2030-2031 timeframe. Sallisaw Municipal Airport, they are having new problems with their avgas tank that was installed sometime in the mid-'80s. Unfortunately, I think it's developing a crack between the inner and outer seal. And so before they get shut down for their current avgas situation, which I think they're mitigating at the moment, but it's only going to last so long because of the Band-Aids that they have available to them. So we want to work with them to install a 100 low lead fuel system in this 2026 timeframe through our fuel program. And then because of some of the investment that they need to make locally on that and a few other items that are pressing, just looking to slide back both their construction of the T-hangar and their terminal building by a year to make sure that they have time to collect their match funding for those items. Seminole Regional Airport, Jimmy Austin Field, they're moving through the process of making this their official name, and they asked that I include this exactly like this to get the word out. So doing my best to represent my airports as best I can. We're looking to add the relocation of their parallel taxiway, that next phase heading off to the north. FAA project at $2.5 million in that 2031 timeframe construction. And also looking to install new PAPIs in the 2028 timeframe there at Seminole. Shawnee Regional, we're looking to add in a rehabilitation of their PAPIs in the 27 timeframe, about a $300,000 cost. And with the congressionally designated spending that they have received out there, looking to do the strengthening of their runway and their taxiway. So the first slide you see here is the design only at $1 million, and then the actual construction costs at $11 million there in the 2028 timeframe. And with the construction of the southeast hangar and some of that development out to the southeast, we've just been waiting on some of the things to fall with the terminal building and some of the things that we've been waiting on in terms of final numbers on different things. So we're just looking to slide this back to the next fiscal year for both the apron and the hangar there on that south side and the road and the utilities. South Grand Lake Regional, we are looking to construct the parallel taxiway, that phase 2, and the beacon. And so that's to take that off to the north as they continue to expand their parallel taxiway. That's in that 2031 timeframe, the FAA project for discretionary. And then adding in a project at Stan Stamper for their next runway rehabilitation at $4 million, again, a discretionary project in that 2029 timeframe. At Stigler, we're just looking to slide back their construction of the parallel taxiway by 1 year to 2029. And at Tulsa International, for some of that pro-growth appropriation dollars, the construction of a 767 hangar in the 2027 timeframe at a total of about $15 million, with the department shown to participate at a $6 million level, again, based off of those appropriations. For Tulsa Riverside, for the construction of their terminal building, just looking to slide that back by 1 year. And the construction of the box hangar at University of Oklahoma Westheimer is something that we are seeking to add. This is to finalize the first wave of the CDS funding that they have received now that we know what the known costs are on their massive airfield optimization project that is getting ready to break ground, I think, within the next 2 weeks, if all goes well. It all depends on when FAA is able to get the grant out the door, but they are ready to start in a week and a half. So we'll see how that goes. So this is, again, to finalize their initial wave of CDS funding and get their additional hangar built there just south of where they've got those, southeast of where they got those new ones out there today. At the NITA, we're just looking to add a fence to their existing project on the road and the parking, and then slide their construction of the terminal building by 1 year as they are seeking some CDS funding on that as well. The construction of parallel taxiway phase 3 there at the NITA is something we're seeking to add in the 2031 timeframe as they look to go full parallel down there given the traffic that they've had an increase there, but that will all be dependent on the FAA funding available and how it competes in the national prioritization rating system. At Weatherford Stafford, we're sliding their rehabilitation of their taxiway and reconstruction of their lighting back by 1 year, and then there has been, we're kind of tidying up and finalizing how best to handle some of the removal that needs to go out there. But for the most part, this is a rehabilitation of the taxiway and lighting project that might have some other little miscellaneous things to address some standards out there. But we want to make sure that we don't do anything that we then have to come back and pay additional money for in terms of relocation of lights that need to be somewhere today. But then whenever some of that other stuff happens with the reconstruction or modifying the geometry of those taxiways, that we're not then double paying for no reason. So that's kind of what we're working through right now. At West Woodward, we are looking to reconstruct their north apron in the 2030 timeframe with some FAA funding there as well. And I think we're mainly updating the numbers there because that's been one of those that they've been aiming to get to, and so we're trying to allow them to compete with some federal funding on that. And at Wiley Post, the construction of their box hangars may slide back by 1 year. This is one that it's kind of on the fence. If I get really lucky, instead I'll have an approval for you guys to consider in May rather than pushing it back by a year. And the rehabilitation of their taxiway in 27, simply updating the numbers based off their CIP that they most recently provided to us based off the scope as it looks today. And then just modifying a few projects in Sand Springs. The first being sliding back of the taxiway alpha rehab and the reconfiguration there on the west side. The rehabilitation of the runway, sliding that back again by 1 year to 2031, and sliding back that terminal building and 100 by 120 attached box hangar. This will replace that, I think, 90 by 100 box hangar that they previously showed in the ACP. This is the one where they had acquired that facility on the west side. We are seeking to rehabilitate that, refurbish it, so that they now have a turnkey at the end of that project, terminal building as well as FBO hangar, for a lot more reasonable cost than what it would be if we tried to build it from the ground up. So with that, I believe, I have one more, and how could I forget this one? Because somebody on my staff really wanted to make sure that I showed his plane on this slide, because he was very proud of it. But you see Thomas Galloway's plane there on the ramp. And this is our general preliminary engineering reports that we do just about every year through state apportionment funding, so that we have some known costs before we get to Judgment Day on our discretionary projects. And so with that, I will shut up, ask for any questions that you may have, commissioners, and I would be happy to answer anything that you may have.
Very good. Your voice held out very well.
It did.
So
I'm
yeah.
very impressed and excited.
Are there questions that we didn't ask?
My impression, not being able to balance them all, seems like we're slipping a lot of them to back a year.
And so what the vast majority of those are just the fact that we are coming up to the end of our current fiscal year, and because we do not at this point anticipate having bids in hand by the May meeting, we just wanted to go ahead and reflect that as sliding to just this next fiscal year, so that as they finalize those designs and allow for that public bidding process, that we show it when we expect it to happen, which is probably going to be at our July meeting, which would be our next fiscal year. So the vast majority of them are for that. For those that aren't, it is an existing project or something that's currently underway that we expect now will bump that by 1 or 2 years, much like some of the Bonita projects of when they expect that to happen. Ponca City also comes to mind now that we know that the terminal should be coming up this next year. We know it's going to take another 18 months before we can actually in earnest plan for that construction. So it's one of those time frame things and one of those juggling things that I get to do as a planner and programmer, and try to find the best sense that makes the most sense to put it out to the public, although I know there are so many variables that are happening in the back. This is my best idea of what I expect to happen based off of everything I know today.
And Nick, you'll be back in May?
I absolutely will.
Nick, the RPZ that we acquired at, I can't remember which airport it was, how many acres was that we acquired there, do you know?
That is a great question. Director, do you remember off the top of your head?
Remember the exact total, but it was single-digit acres.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what airport was that at again?
Grove.
Okay.
Yeah, the only land acquisition numbers I can think of off the top of my head would have been South Grand Lake, that I think was somewhere in the vicinity of 6,000 to 6,500 an acre.
Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All right, is there further discussion or questions? Nope, seeing none, please call the roll.
Commissioner Baker,
Aye.
Commissioner Ritz,
Aye.
Commissioner Rainey,
Aye.
Commissioner Putnam,
Aye.
Commissioner Hunter,
Aye.
Commissioner Campbell,
Aye.
Commissioner Siegfried.
Aye.
And that motion passes. Thank you very much, Nick, for that
Thank
good
you,
work.
Commissioners.
Director Artis, is this a time that you want to change the order of the day, or do you want to continue with take up number 20, or do you want to continue as we are?
I think we can do another 30 minutes.
Okay. Got it. So next up is I gotta get my glasses on. Item 12, which is the aircraft engine test cell grant amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, my good friend's voice held up and got through that in a world record time. Item number 12. So I know we've talked to you before about the engine test cell program. We received a allotment of engine test cell funds from the legislature last year for 2 projects in Bristow, Oklahoma. One was they're both for Kratos, 2 different arms of Kratos. One is for the MRO arm. That one is still moving forward. The other was for the new engine manufacturing arm of Kratos. That was where they're bringing new engine manufacturing to Bristow, and of course they needed test cells to test those engines as they come off the manufacturing line before they get put on the item that they're getting put on. And so based on the money the legislature provided us, we knew we were short. They only allocated us 8.1 for the total, but obviously the total cost of the engine test cells was higher. And we simply told Kratos at the time, like, this is what we have, we can't give you any more. There was $16 million of funds sitting in the engine test cell program from the first allocation in FY '24, when it was supposed to be for the Lufthansa project. As of probably about a month and a half, 2 months ago, Lufthansa identified to us that they were no longer going to be able to move forward with their engine test cell expansion, attributed to several different issues, some business challenges, challenges with the tariffs, and then of course some challenges with their OEM partners of not providing them the extra work that they were expecting to be provided from the OEMs. And so they have declined that $16 million in the engine test cell fund. We've had conversations with the legislature, and they would like us to reallocate that $16 million to other engine test cell projects across the state. And so for the last probably 30 to 40 days, that's what we have been doing. We've been identifying these other engine test cell projects. The first one and foremost, though, is the being able to increase our share for the engine test cell at the Bristow, as they had originally requested, but we didn't have the funds for at the time. So what you're seeing here is essentially a change order, an amendment to the previous grant for the new engine test cell facility for the new engine manufacturing line at Kratos. It'll be just to the east of the Bristow Airport, and the total cost is about just shy, as you can see there, $2.3 million. That's our 60% share. They have to bring 40% cash to the table as well as the granting entity. And so the 60% share is the $2.3 million number that you see. We have the money available. It's sitting in the account from that FY '24 appropriation that was originally allocated to Lufthansa, but certainly stand for any questions you may have if you would like to discuss, but we recommend approval.
Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Moved and seconded. Are there any questions?
Do we know what kind of engines?
Yes, I don't know the name of the engine off the top of my head, but there are several different types of engines they're going to be using. Some are reusable and some of them are one-way, if you know what I'm saying. So, but yeah, some of them will be on aircraft that will be unmanned aircraft that will be returnable, and some of them will be one-way but depository with a loud crash at the end.
Other questions? Seeing none, let's call the roll.
Commissioner Baker,
Aye.
Commissioner Ritz,
Aye.
Commissioner Rainey,
Aye.
Commissioner Putnam,
Aye.
Commissioner Hunter,
Aye.
Commissioner Campbell,
Aye.
Commissioner Siegfried.
Aye.
Motion passes. Let's move on to item 13, Unmanned Aircraft Systems Infrastructure Investment Program. We'll continue with Director Hardes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So I want to remind everybody that there's been 3 main projects programmed in the UAS infrastructure world. So just like we have a airport construction program that has hundreds of projects, we also have a UAS, or an unmanned aircraft system, advanced air mobility programming for various projects. Our UAS AAM program is much smaller. It's only 3 projects. Those main projects were the test site, or the test location out at western Oklahoma at Burns Flat, where we are installing radars both at the spaceport and elsewhere in western Oklahoma to enable that beyond visual line of sight flying activity. For another arm of Kratos, we love Kratos in Oklahoma, but the unmanned aircraft arm of Kratos that's flying either the Loyal Wingman program or the Firejet targeting drone program, so on and so forth. So that was project 1. That's been funded for the most part in its entirety, those radar systems. Project 2 is our partnership in Tulsa with Tulsa Innovation Labs and what they are calling their drone port, their Skyway 36 facility. Some of you in Oklahoma may remember the old North Tulsa Airport that was closed back in the 90s. It has been reopened as essentially a drone port and a drone industrial park for the Osage Nation, OSU, Tulsa Innovation Labs, and several other partners there in northeast Oklahoma. That was one project that we had programmed. And the third one that I'd remind everybody about is the Camp Gruber, the Oklahoma National Guard project that we are doing to make Camp Gruber a UAS test site where all National Guard entities from across the country can come to Oklahoma and do their homeland UAS testing, experimentation, research activities at a National Guard level. And so what you see here today is the first project that's becoming before you for granting in the Tulsa project, and this is the THETA, the Tulsa Hub for Equitable and Trustworthy Autonomy, or THETA. They have been awarded several federal grants through the BIL or a couple of different other programs in the Department of Commerce level. And so what they are asking us, one of our shares of the project, was to purchase radar infrastructure, not to exceed $2 million. And again, this will be funded with the regular recurring appropriations we receive for UAS and AAM. As you'll recall, about 3 years ago, we started receiving $2 million. In the first year, we received another $2 million, and then last year we received $2.5 million of appropriations for UAS AAM infrastructure, in addition to the $5 million that OSIDA received in 2022 for both the spaceport and statewide radar development. So we've gotten quotes on this radar. This is a fairly long-range radar when it comes to UAS AAM. It's I believe it's a phased array radar, if I'm not mistaken. And so we are looking to go and acquire that radar. We'll put it in Tulsa, and it will help us do whether drone delivery on the commercial side or maybe drone as a first responder on the public safety side. Is going to help Tulsa engage in becoming instead of the oil capital of the world, as they've been known for many, many years, the drone hub capital of the world is they're trying to transform into that. So certainly stand for any questions that you guys might have.
Is there a motion to approve?
I so move.
Second.
And moved and seconded. Any questions or discussion? Seeing none, let's call the roll, please.
Commissioner Baker,
Aye.
Commissioner Ritz,
Aye.
Commissioner Rainey,
Aye.
Commissioner Putnam,
Aye.
Commissioner Hunter,
Aye.
Commissioner Campbell,
Aye.
Commissioner Siegfried.
Aye.
And that motion also passes. The next order of business is item 14, Prep Fund and Pro-Growth Aviation Infrastructure Appropriation Update. Continuing with our director.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So as we do every meeting, give you a little flavor of what's happening in prep world. Obviously, you guys just approved one of the final prep projects for Ardmore and their air cargo development. That's the wastewater utility infrastructure that's going to happen there along Grumman Street. They're currently reconstructing or expanding their apron for the air cargo at Ardmore. Grumman Street is getting underway. And then, of course, as we get into the infrastructure, the utility piece, that'll start here in the next couple of months. At Woodward, I'll mention this here in the director's report. Obviously, we celebrated, had Commissioner Baker in attendance there, celebrated several of those projects that completed. And then the runway, I think here is starting the next handful of weeks as well, the runway extension piece. Tulsa is pretty exciting. They are not topped out just yet, but they have been placing the cab up on top of the tower. And so I think there's four pieces of the tower cab. 3 of those 4 have been raised, and they're trying to figure out when they're going to raise the 4th one. That will be the topping out. They're going to try and, if they have enough time or notice or awareness of that, they're going to try and have a small ceremony. Obviously, if we learn of that, we'll let you know as quickly as we can. And so that's exciting that they'll be topping out here hopefully in the next month or two. And then obviously then all the fun work on the inside begins for the Tulsa Tower. And then of course you all partook, many of you partook in the AAR celebration. They have not occupied that facility, but they're getting close to the final inspection. I know they've had a couple final walkthroughs, and I think they're just touching up a few punch lists before AAR actually puts some commercial MRO vehicles in that hangar. Of course, our $14 million of prep money that goes into the competitive hangar pot, that's got a few hangars left on it. Those are either under construction or becoming advertising for bids this spring. And then the $4 million of commercial air service development money is we know the Will Rogers International route. We know some of the Tulsa routes to various destinations. I believe we're going to start the San Diego and Seattle routes here in a couple of weeks. So
March 18th.
We're going to be excited about
I'll
that.
be on the San Diego flight.
Yeah, you're on the San Diego
I'm on the
flight.
San Diego
Okay,
flight.
all right. I will be there to wave you goodbye.
All right.
So we're very excited about that, to see Tulsa start those new direct flights. And I know in having conversations with both commercial airports, they're having some conversations with the airlines to see if they can maybe start planning for a 2027 new offering of nonstop flights. So that concludes the prep report. If we do, again, get that Tulsa topping out ceremony identified, we'll let you know. Obviously, we'll have the celebration for the new nonstops here coming up in a couple of weeks for Tulsa. And then as we start concluding some of the Ardmore projects, I would expect those to be celebrated maybe later this summer or early fall. So certainly stand for any questions that you guys might have. But
Are there any questions? Nope, seeing none, thank you very much.
thank you.
I think that takes us on to item 15, if I'm not correct. That's the Aerospace and Aviation Education Program update. Paula, you got the next 2 or 3, right?
I do.
Okay,
Thank you.
welcome.
Thank you. Good morning, Commissioners. I'd like to focus this morning, since we last met, we've had 2 major events, 2 major programs that I wanted just to share that information and the success about those 2 things. The first was in Tulsa, at Tulsa Community College and Flight Safety International, which is, we believe, the first ever Oklahoma High School Aviation State Championship in the nation. I brought this to you last month and said that it was a 3-tiered event, starting with, I believe we had 3,011 AOPA high school students sit for a general knowledge aviation exam on December 2nd. We then moved forward to regional championships, one at Mustang High School, January 22nd, the other at Pryor High School on February 5th. Schools were able to come to regionals and bring a team of 5 students. It was an academic bowl, quiz bowl type setup. And the teams emerged from that championship. 12 teams emerged as semifinalists and were allowed then to come to the semifinalist final competition in Tulsa on February 2021. The 12 teams that move forward, just because you might be interested in knowing who they are: Newcastle High School, Marietta High School, Oklahoma Aviation Academy in Norman, Cache High School, Westmore, Collinsville, Tulsa Union High School, Ada High School, Pryor, Hayworth, Stillwater, and Wyandotte. In that list, you'll see a mixture of some tiny, tiny little schools to obviously our very largest schools. And all of them competed against each other in the same event. How set up was that each team of 5 pilots had to fly the simulation course and each take a leg of the flight plan, and then those scores were averaged to come up with the team score. I appreciate Thomas. Thomas went with us on the 20th and 21st. He did the flight briefings for the instructors. You see the director there came and spoke that evening to the students and to the instructors. I want to show our appreciation to Tulsa Community College and Dean Julie Porterfield. Dean Porterfield opened not only the TCC campus, but the TCC Aviation Center, so that when they weren't testing, students could go out to the Aviation Center and learn about air traffic control and about their professional pilot program. Emerging to the finals, and here are the ones that won actually on Saturday morning. The winner and the state champion is Westmore High School. We hope to bring them to you in future meetings. I believe they were going to be recognized on the Senate floor today, or tomorrow, which is exciting. And we would love to share their success with you. Also, runner-up Ada High School. 3rd place was Tulsa Union High School. And 4th place was Newcastle. I wanted to bring your attention to the one picture there at the bottom, the Newcastle teacher. We finished the event on Saturday morning. By Monday, he had texted me this picture and had this banner made that says Final Four, that they made the Final Four of that competition. So we thought that was great, the excitement that was shown. I wish you could have seen the faces of the students as they went into the rooms to fly those sims. And I wish you also could have seen the faces of the teachers, because Flight Safety International in Frasca actually drove their flight simulators from Urbana, Illinois to Tulsa for those students to use in that competition. Flight Safety brought in engineers from Dallas. Their event planner from Illinois flew in a week ahead and started putting the meals together, and it was just a remarkable partnership. I would like to thank Richard Lofton, Vice President of Business for Flight Safety International, who took the point on this and worked with us to get all of this put together. But it was a tremendous success. And we're happy to be able to share that with you. The second.
Paula?
Uh-huh.
Question.
certainly.
Besides the group awards, weren't there some individual?
Yes, there were individual
'Cause
awards.
I heard about that one.
Yes, one we were very proud of was, we called it the Professional Pilot Spirit of Aviation Award, went to Stillwater High School. They were dressed professionally every day. They supported each other as they came out of the classrooms. They were high-fiving the way that they were working together. And so that award was given. The Top Gun instructor was an instructor from Marietta High School in southern Oklahoma named Erin Hansen. She actually cried as she got up there to accept the award, and her kids were, so excited. We had some Top Gun pilots that were recognized, I believe 5 of them, for their performance on the simulators. I know there was a tiebreaker simulation that they had to land on an aircraft carrier and some various things just to break the ties, but the kids had a great time. The teachers, what's cool about it to me is that the work that they've been doing for these past 5 or 6 years is coming to fruition. They've got kids that can perform and do exactly what we hoped they would be able to do. So we hope to expand this next year. I don't know exactly how we'll do that, but we had thousands of people involved, and we really appreciate. I told the director, I've really never seen a partnership how all in Flight Safety and Frasca were in this event. So we certainly appreciate the work that they did on our behalf. The second event was last weekend in Stillwater with the ODAA, and it was the Aero Education Teacher Drone Building event. We've had these for about the past 4 years. This one was especially good in that the teachers came in on Friday afternoon. They got to hear from Stillwater Emergency Management, who told them how they use drones and UAS. And you remember the big fires in Stillwater last year, how the drones were used to determine what neighborhoods where the fire was moving, and working with the fire department on how to move forward. We got to hear from agriculture and how drones are being used with cattle herd, and obviously what I still call crop dusting. Also in finding the wild hogs and alleviating that situation in Oklahoma. So it was very interesting for teachers to be able to hear how drones are currently being used and what it might look like in the future. And many of these students, surprisingly enough, already have their Part 107 drone commercial drone certification. So the teachers were excited to hear about that. I got a call yesterday morning from a small school, Rock Creek in Boca Chica, Oklahoma. And the teacher called and he said, I want to tell you that's the best professional development I've ever been to, and I'm a career teacher. He says, because it shows what will happen with the skills that are being learned. And that's exactly what we want to happen to raise the bar in Oklahoma schools, in my opinion. So you see, Doug, we thank Doug, again, Thomas, for his help as we are working to work with the teachers. We're working to work with the students. And I think building a program that has really been able to raise the bar in Oklahoma education. So thank you. I'll stand for any questions.
Excellent. Are there questions?
Great job.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's super.
It was very fun, really fun.
All right, well, we'll move on to item 16, which is the Classroom Lab Grant Program Consent Docket, which is continuing with you, Paul.
Okay, yes, thank you. I'm guilty sometimes of only bringing to you quantitative information. How many schools do we have? How many students do we have? What I wish that you could ride around with me in my little white state car and you could see the transformation. When I first visit these schools, it's, oh yeah, that might be a program we could offer. That'd be fun, that'd be good, that's STEM. And then over about 2 or 3 years, you're seeing the most remarkable things happen. They want this to be the kingpin of their programming. They want their community involved. Not that I don't still talk to nearly all of them every week, but they're letting go a little bit, and they are talking to their own airport managers. They are talking to their own industry people. They are calling us to say, hey, we just partnered with the Choctaw Nation to do this, 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 and this, and we never even knew it in the first place. That's how it ought to happen. That's how the growth should happen. is that they're taking this on as a program they want to build. It isn't just, and this is why I'm so proud, it's not just a new class they're offering. It's a really strong program that they're developing as we build a pathway into industry and into workforce. This will be the third time we've rolled out to you what we're calling the Classroom Lab Improvement Grant. Over the past, the ones you've seen, some people have had, Durant High School had an old FFA building that they wanted to transform into an aerospace lab. I think I've spoken to you about Wyandotte High School, who bought an old grocery store across the street from the high school and started working to transform it into an aerospace lab. Wyandotte's a very small school. I got a call this week from the CEO of Pittsco Education in Pittsburgh, Kansas. He goes, Paula, have you ever been to Wyandotte? I said, yes, sir. I've been to Wyandotte several times. And he said, this is amazing. They have an old grocery store. They've turned it in. I said, yes, I know. And someone donated to them an $85,000 simulator anonymously that they still do not know. And so this little school, 3/4 of their population is enrolled in AOPA coursework. And it's so great to see. They actually were one of the schools that qualified for the state championship. So the work that they're doing is paying off. I say all that to say, when you see these lab grant proposals, recommendations to you this morning, they're in various phases. Some are starting really remodeling. Some are just trying to get the last pieces of big equipment that they need to really move forward. You know how many times I've been up here and we said we recommend one flight simulator to this school, one flight simulator to that school. Well, now these schools have 80, 100, in Moore's case, almost 600 kids enrolled in these programs, and so they need more than one flight simulator. So in some cases, they're asking us in these lab improvement grants to add some equipment to it. So we're bringing forth to you some recommendations. The first is Burns Flat, Dill City. Of course, Burns Flat moving forward, as Nick mentioned, in the growth of the spaceport, but also in the growth of their program, which is right off the runway there in Burns Flat, Oklahoma. They're asking for some computers to develop their flight sims. They're using Microsoft Flight and rudder pedals to round out their program. Their amount recommended is $9,360 for Burns Flat. Choteau Maisie, a school that's just south of Pryor Industrial Park, asking for lab stools and tables, storage and desk, and an interactive TV to be able to use the AOPA curriculum effectively, a $10,000 amount recommendation. Cushing High School, lab tables, some storage, some safety equipment, some shop stools, and again, some cabinetry, a request of $10,000. El Reno High School, storage cabinets, simulators, rudder pedals, and some tools. I believe in the future they're considering also building a plane, a Tango flight plane, as some of our schools have. El Reno High School, $25,000. Hayworth, a small school in southeastern Oklahoma, almost to Louisiana, also was one of our state championship, semifinalists. Their amount recommended for them, $76,500. They are building a shop building with a concrete slab, HVAC, and shelving to propel their program even further. Jinx High School requesting lab tables, storage, additional simulators and monitors. Again, they're growing their program exponentially, as they should with their high enrollment, and are requesting $56,000, and that is the amount we've recommended. Tupelo High School, lab tables, chairs, workbench, flooring, paint, electrical upgrades and tools, $41,000, excuse me. And finally, Watonga High School, requesting HVAC, electrical upgrades and lighting, workbench, tools. Watonga is one of the schools this year that plans to implement Tango Flight as well. Again, I want to show the difference in the size of these districts. Small schools even being willing to take on building an aircraft like Watonga. So those are the recommendations that we bring before you for the lab improvement grant. The staff recommends those amounts recommended.
And is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion, questions? Paula, when you approve this, which I assume we're going to, what verification do you later on use to make sure that the money that we're putting here goes to the project that they've said they wanted to do?
Yes, and we are on the ground a lot. For instance, Enid, last year, we granted them a storage type, a metal building, and that they have been building their Tango Flight in. We were in Enid about 2 months ago. We were able to look at that project and see it come to fruition.
Yeah, good.
And Durant, numerous times, they've taken that old FFA building, they've remodeled, we've been there. So we are able to see it in action.
That's good, because it's a good investment. We just want to make sure that as
Yes.
we
And
invest
of-
more,
yes.
it's going always towards the right purpose.
And of course, they turn in their receipts to us. We
Yep.
see what's been spent, but more than that, we are on site with them all the time.
Beautiful, wonderful. Let's do roll call, please.
Commissioner Baker,
Aye.
Commissioner Ritz,
Aye.
Commissioner Rainey,
Aye.
Commissioner Putnam,
Aye.
Commissioner Hunter,
Aye.
Commissioner Campbell,
Aye.
Commissioner Siegfried,
Aye.
Motion passes. Moving on to, I think we're number 17, which is the Aerospace and Aviation Internship Grant Program. Continuing with
Yes.
Paula.
Thank you. This is a brand-new grant opportunity for industry or for airport entities to apply to have us assist them in offering internships at their places of business. Again, a new opportunity. What I mentioned earlier is into play here as well. This is the depth that's happening. We're seeing these high school and collegiate students able now to focus on a career path and want to get into a place of business where they have some industry experience. We rolled this out through our Gov Delivery and had several applications then from the internships, for the internship program. The first was aircraft and military component repair in Hera. They plan to offer internship positions to 6 to 8 interns, and the staff is recommending $25,000. In the program, the entity is a 50% match of the cost of paying that intern. Again, they are in some cases older high school students, or in some cases college or career tech students that are taking a spot in those particular industries. The second is Encore Industries in Tulsa, 2 interns for a recommendation of $6,480. The third, Guthrie Edmond Regional Airport, 1 intern, a recommendation of $2,880. Infinite Composites in Tulsa, 2 interns, recommendation of $25,000. Lufthansa Technic Component Service, 2 interns, a recommendation of $25,000. Phoenix Rising Aviation in Bartlesville, 1 to 2 interns, $1,800 recommendation. Stillwater Aircraft Services, 1 intern, $10,400 recommended. Sunbear Aerospace in Owasso, 1 intern, $4,500. The Coldwell Collection in El Reno at the El Reno Airport, 2 interns, $18,630. And Tulsa Air and Space Museum, 1 to 2 interns, $3,500 recommended. In both those cases, I was told that those interns would be working particularly with the aircraft on display and working on the upkeep of the presentation of those aircraft. And I think some of you already are aware that the Coldwell Collection is a historical collection. You may have read in the paper recently that they had originally planned to just be open by appointment. Now they're opening their doors several days a week to people to come to the Coldwell Collection. And then number 11, the United Dynamics in Shawnee, 4 interns at a recommendation of $25,000. What this does is take our work to the next level. You're putting them in place to see what they've learned can further their career, and further our state for that matter. So I certainly will stand for any questions.
Thank you. Is there a motion to approve?
I so move.
Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Now, are there any questions?
Paula, you and I have had this discussion. When are the majority of the AOPA kids, you know, the first round graduating? This year, they'll be seniors?
Well, some of them, those earlier schools, like Ada and Pryor and Mustang in particular, McAllister, have already seen students through.
Okay.
And some, Ada in particular, having, this would be the 7th or 8th year, have had students graduate to the collegiate level as well. So we are seeing specifically, and we hope to start tracking that data. I was at a workforce meeting yesterday at the Capitol and talking about being able to track, which is very hard when they leave an entity. How do you know where they're going? But we're working to try to do that. But most of the schools are probably in year 3 and 4 of the pathway in the high school at the moment. And then, but some have moved on to the college.
Because it's really important for the collegiate programs to start anticipating. We've already had discussions, and Grayson's well aware of that, and how they're handling that. But it's good to know where the influx is going to come.
Yeah, it's coming. If you have 8,000 students enrolled in AOPA, and with a plan, not all of them obviously, to go to post-secondary education, but you have to have a place for them. You're exactly right.
Thank you. Jim, did you have a question?
Yeah, this is the first time we've done interns, isn't
Yes,
it?
it is.
That's exciting.
It is.
It really is. The second question I had was, one of the tracks is A&P mechanic,
Yes.
and are we funneling them into the
Yes,
A&P school?
I believe we have 17 high schools using the Choose Aerospace maintenance curriculum right now, and it's an 11th and 12th grade, and we are funneling. It does take a little bit more instructor-wise for a high school to find a support instructor or some supportive help if they don't have a background in A&P. So it takes a little bit more scaffolding, but we are working to do that, and we are seeing some success in some of the high schools with this maintenance program. But the A&P is also included in the AOPA curriculum, just not in depth. It does give them some background. It could lead them to Gordon Cooper or Metro Tech or Tulsa Tech for A&P. It gives them enough information to lead them in that direction.
Super, thank you very much.
What are the key qualifying requirements for the intern application?
That's up to the entity that's hiring them. Oh, with us?
Oh, yeah, is it a certain employee minimum or maximum?
No, many of them, well,
Yeah, it was small companies, what we advertised, right? 1,000 employees.
oh, yes, I'm sorry.
okay.
I'm very sorry, yes. I thought you were
Okay.
referring to financially, but no, it was small.
Okay.
Other questions? Please call the roll.
Commissioner Baker,
Aye.
Commissioner Ritz,
Aye.
Commissioner Rainey,
Aye.
Commissioner Putnam,
Aye.
Commissioner Hunter,
Aye.
Commissioner Campbell,
Aye.
Commissioner Siegfried.
Aye.
Thank you, Paula.
Thank you.
Well, Director Arties, you want me to make a change of the order of the day at this time, or?
Sure.
All right, might as well do that. So the first step, I've been asked that we change the order of the day to move the executive session up to this point in our meeting. So the first thing I'd ask is for a motion to change the order of the day, move item 20 up to this point.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion? Any objection? By unanimous consent, we are going to change the order of the day. We are now going to take up item number 20. And item number 20 is going to be a discussion of possible action to enter executive session pursuant to 25 OS Section 307B1 for the purposes of discussing the resignation of the Director of Government Affairs, Industry Development, and Communications. I would like a motion to go into executive session from the board, please.
I would so move.
Is there a second?
Second.
Let's do the roll call, please, on that.
Commissioner Baker,
Aye.
Commissioner Ritz,
Aye.
Commissioner Rainey,
Aye.
Commissioner Putnam,
Aye.
Commissioner Hunter,
Aye.
Commissioner Campbell,
Aye.
Commissioner Siegfried.
Aye.
So at this point, Director, we'll turn it over to you to have the room vacated, turn off the audio visual, and keep only those in the room that you feel appropriate. Okay, I want to welcome everybody back. I hope you enjoyed your time out in the hallway and conversing about all the important things in life. You know, whether we're going to get the next tornado in the next few days or not. But, you know, I just want to confirm audiovisual's back on. It's coming, okay. I'll hold until you give me the up sign. All right, good. We have our audiovisual back. People are back in attendance. We want to return to open session. With that, I'd like to have a motion from the board to return to open session.
I so move.
Second. Is it moved and seconded? Please call the roll.
Commissioner Baker,
Aye.
Commissioner Ritz,
Aye.
Commissioner Rainey,
Aye.
Commissioner Putnam,
Aye.
Commissioner Hunter,
Aye.
Commissioner Campbell,
Aye.
Commissioner Siegfried.
Aye. While we're still on this topic in open session, is there any action that anybody would like to take? Is there anything to come out of the executive session that we should bring in open session? Seeing none, we'll move on. Now, I got to get back on my computer here. We are moving back to item 18, I believe. Correct me if I'm wrong. 18. Okay, it's preview of upcoming aviation aerospace events. Yep.
Hi, Secretary Campbell and Commissioners. Thank you. I just wanted to take a moment to give you a brief review, or preview of Oklahoma's 2026 Aero Day. Wednesday, April 1st, we're going to be taking over the entire second floor rotunda at the state capitol. We're going to fill it with exhibitors and booths, industry professionals, students, military, educators. We're going to all come together and speak with one voice to our legislators, advocate for the industry, and highlight aerospace and aviation's contributions to the state economy. We've got more than 1,000 people planned to attend, including 250 children from our AOP You Can Fly program. And we're even hosting about 50 adults from Gordon Cooper's A&P program, which is kind of exciting and new. Director Arties and Chief of Staff Chris Wadsworth have been busy working the phones. So we're flushed with a slew of speakers and special guests from industry who are planning to attend. And as you know, there's strength in numbers, so I would like you to attend too, if you can, and join us and show how vital aerospace and aviation is to the state.
Time? When are the hours?
The hours are going to be from 9 to 2 on April 1st. It's a Wednesday. And if you'd like, you can scan that QR code. That'll take you to our events page, and you can see up to the minute changes, anything that we got going on. That's about it for me, and I'll stand for any questions.
Excellent. I'm going to be there. So I think I did the Q code right, but maybe not.
No worries, no worries.
I'm telling you now, I'm going to be there. So-
It is technically open to the public.
Okay.
It is
So
open to the
anybody
public as
can
well.
come. We just try and get the QR code to
Okay.
one, harvest your email, which we already have yours,
Yeah,
Commissioner.
you
Don't
do.
worry about that. But two, also just try and get a general idea for lunches.
Very good.
Yes,
Do you
yes,
need-
and please join us for lunch.
Do you need to know if we're coming based on, are we gonna make, are we gonna talk to some of the legislators or not?
We are gonna have advocacy groups, and we are working on splitting up those teams right now. So yes, we may reach out to some of you to be on advocacy groups. What we've experienced in the past is that a lot of our meetings that are planned don't end up happening for whatever reason. They're on the floor, they're in committee. And so what we're going to do more this year is encourage each individual entity to go into their individual offices and try and reach them individually, instead of trying to organize groups together. We're gonna have a couple groups, but certainly are gonna put forth a capital advocacy card that everybody can go utilize to make recommendations for on your own. So you can go talk to your lawmaker. We can kind of point you in the right direction of some of the champion aerospace and defense lawmakers, because yeah, at the end of the day, it's going to be an all hands on deck. But the organization of everybody having their own individual group, that's always been a little tough strategically and logistically on our part.
And we won't turn anyone here away from the registration table at all.
Any other questions, discussion? All right, thank you, Melissa.
Thank you.
Very good. Moving on, takes us back to Director Arties for item number 19, the Director's Report.
And And I might mention on that last item, the 10 o'clock session is when we're going to have our big General Assembly. And we have the governor, lieutenant governor, the speaker, the pro tem, NASA Administrator Bridenstine, CEO of Agile, Chris Pearson, as long as other lawmakers as well, state lawmakers that are going to be attending. So it's going to be a great event. So, but back to 19. Last couple months been busy. Started off January 22nd. Tulsa International Airport held their first ever State of the Airport, excuse me. And so I had an opportunity to speak at that in their general area there in the main lobby between the rental car desks. You'll remember some of you attended the AOPA Teacher Training Summit dinner event that we had there at the same spot. Great event. Commissioner Campbell was there, and I think that may have been our only. I don't remember if Commissioner Potter or Phillips were in attendance or not, but I know Commissioner Campbell was there. Then on February 3rd, we had the ODAA legislative reception. That was a great reception. They hosted over at the Innovation District. Amazing opportunity there to talk to lawmakers at the beginning of session. February 13th, we had the Woodward Terminal celebration, where we helped and partnered with Woodward to celebrate four of their first prep projects to be completed. That was the terminal building, the large hangar and office space, the taxiway and access road, as well as the utilities that's going to support that. I know Commissioner Baker was there in attendance, maybe got a few ideas to bring back to his home community. And then followed that on at February 18th, we had the Aero Caucus, held our first Aero Caucus of the year there at the Capitol in partnership with the OAA quarterly meeting. Had about 30 legislators there, maybe not all at one time, but over the course of the hour and a half of the meeting. So great conversations with our lawmakers there on February 18th. On the 24th, I'd mentioned earlier in the agenda, I went to Washington, D.C. for our NSEA Legislative Conference. Met with 5 of the 7 offices. Was a little short on time, so I couldn't do all 7 out of 7. But had some great conversations about potential CDS projects, some of the challenges ensuring the protection of the Monroney Center, which is always at the forefront of our minds, as well as kind of what do we need to be looking for in about 3 years as we start the next FAA reauthorization debate. It's never too soon to start your next FAA policy conversation. So, and then last but not least, the team just got back from the Oklahoma Airport Operators Conference down in Ardmore, Oklahoma. We all made it back, dodged the storms last night. I think we had one make it back this morning, I hope. And so great conversation there with our airport friends and our airport community at the Ardmore Convention Center down in a key district and key city for Oklahoma. So thank you guys for allowing me to present. So I stand for any questions that you might have on what's
The
happened
questions
last
from
month and a half.
commission members? Nope, see none, thank you much. I believe we already did item 20, so that moves us to 21, concluding remarks and regarding agenda items. Back to the director first, then I'll go to commissioners.
None for me.
All right, around the table, anybody have any comments here? Seeing none, we go on to item 22, announcement of the next meeting. And I suppose that's here somewhere in my notes, right? Okay, the notes tell me that 9 o'clock on Wednesday, May 13th, in this room here, the first floor conference room at the Oklahoma Department of Transportation, we will hold our next meeting. And we'll do a quorum check prior to that, make sure we have enough people, including a chair and vice chair that could be here.
Yeah,
You
where
know,
are they?
this third string stuff ain't working. All right, item 23, new business. Any new business to be brought forward from the, nope. Anything from the commission? Nope. Seeing none, I'll take a motion to adjourn.
I so move.
Second?
Second.
All right. Seeing no objection, we're adjourned.
Gotta hit the hammer.
I have to get it up.
There.